Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, the turnover margin has cast a gloomy pale over the Red Raiders season, but can Behren Morton be that shining light in the darkness? That and more as we get ready for the Jayhawks next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with peace of mind and a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat over 50 infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to see you again, my man, and already here at the end of another week, getting ready for another kickoff. Lawrence, Kansas will be the scene coming up for an 11 a.m.er tomorrow morning. It is the Red Raiders and the Jayhawks. We'll get to some keys to victory coming up on today's show. Also something touching on a topic that may actually be of, a pleasant surprise to a Red Raider fan out there somewhere. Given how prominent the turnover conversation has been this season for Texas Tech, how much of that actually has tied directly in to who your quarterback is now, that being Behren Morton? We'll take a closer look coming up in just a moment. But, of course, now in the rear view, the weekly conversation with Red Raider head coach Joey Maguire that Chris has every week. And, Chris, it's kind of strange. It feels not quite like an open week, but it feels kind of quiet on the Red Raider front because you've had some additional time since you were last in action on Thursday night a week ago, and you took down the Horned Frogs. So you have some additional time to prepare for that one going into it. And because of the way it sets up, now a little bonus time to prepare for Kansas. So how did you find Coach Maguire, and how did he describe the ways in which they've used some of that allotted time this week?
Yeah, it felt like when I visited with him last night, because we did the show before that we had done was on Halloween, so it felt like 2 months. The Rangers had won the World Series between then. I mean, you'd beaten TCU between then. It was just like all these things. I'm like, geez, that seems like so long ago. But yeah, we're talking about Taj Brooks eclipsing 1,000 yards and a possum, and Behren Morton being back and all that stuff. And I feel like we had, but that was the the way it worked out. And kind of a weird bye week in that. Yeah, you felt like you had a couple of bye weeks in the middle of that and all that. But yeah, he I think ready and amped up to go play a really good Kansas team. We spent some time talking about the portal and recruiting and kind of how they spent some of their time there, especially from a recruiting standpoint. And it allowed them a couple of different Friday nights-ish to get out and go see kids. I think he spent I think it's well documented out there in the social medias, because it's hard to hide these head coaches. I think a couple of Friday nights ago he was watching Will Hammond, and then this past Friday night he was watching Micah Hudson. He was photographed in both. So
yeah, there's a great video of him standing by a goalpost while Hudson takes it to the house the other way. It just happened to line up. Probably a local news crew, whoever it was, but it was kind of a cool video to watch.
Yeah, so that and those both of those young men. They're both in the playoffs, I believe, right now in the high school playoffs, but they're both set to be, I guess, signed and in Lubbock by, mid-December. And Joey
right
did
around
talk
the corner.
about that. That's right. It sure is. And Joey did talk about that, and that they've got it all set up that if they can advance to get into a bowl game, then guys like that are set to be able to practice and be a part of that preparation. So I thought that's some good stuff there. A couple of funny things. Because he will freely admit, like, look, I get we're not having the season that we wanted to. There's some things that we needed to be better at. There were some things that were out of our control, but it's not. But we are still, trying to get to a bowl game as desperately as we can. It's important. Like we are focused on this game this week. But he goes, I tell you, who's been letting me hear it a lot. And he talked about his wife, Debbie. And so he said Debbie came home recently and was like, honey, you need to win some games. I really like living here. So you need to win some damn games. And I just know, because she's extremely competitive. The going for it on fourth down at times, she's like, what are we doing? Kind of thing. But obviously that's always when it doesn't work. I love how transparent and free he is, because most coaches would be, I don't know, like not openly talking about things like that. But again, they're 4-5, and they hadn't been the kind of year that they wanted to have. But I just thought I think it's good stuff when you can be as trained, because they genuinely do love it here. And I don't know if they'd love it everywhere, but they love it here. And he and she are so easy to root for, because they love here. They love it here, but they love the people right back, and the love that they've got. Anyway, it's just, but you got to win. They understand that.
Sure.
And
I think that's reciprocated real quick, Chris, from so many in the fan base who really, because of how they feel about them personally, really wanted to work out with him. Yep. I've heard that so many times in the YouTube comments. I'm sure you've seen it on RedRaidersports.com, that just from a personal level, so many Tech fans rooting for it to work out. Obviously, we want to win football games, but because of kind of the endearment with that family just over the last year and a half or so many want on a personal front for it to work out the same way.
And what the one thing that I know they're doing well is they're recruiting really, really well. And at some point, yes, it has to pay off. You've got to develop them and all those things. But they're in some of this uncharted territory with being able to stack some classes here. And again, you continue to bring youth in. And Joey talked about the philosophy. He's like, a lot of schools, and I think, you could even point back to your last opponent. They've really gone all in on the portal. And like, that's what they're going to major in. He was like, we're just not going to do that. I don't think you can win long term if you continue to just spin your wheel there and look to and maintain a culture. He goes, we will always dabble in the portal and supplement and do, because then they're going to go. They're going to get in the portal with offensive linemen, maybe a D lineman, some tight ends, potentially a running back, a DB. But you're still going to sign the bulk of your players as high school players, and then develop really good kids and all those things. And I think it's, again, every coach can run their program how they see fit. I think Matt Wells got into that and was pretty heavy into it because there was pressure to win and win right now. I think Joey has some of that pressure, but I think that it's pretty clear when you bring somebody here and their strongest point is recruiting, and that's kind of his identity with the Texas high school coaches and all those things. There's got to be some time given, because that's really what needed to be fixed, was your roster and your talent base and all that, and they're starting to do some of that. So we had a good conversation about that. And I'll, pivoting to Kansas real fast, just on the show, Joey made a couple of 3 points that I think were very valid.
First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for, with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk, because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
Pivoting to Kansas real fast, just on the show, Joey made a couple of 3 points that I think were very valid. One is, one of the things that they did with this offense, this Kansas offense, that makes it so good for Kansas is that it's extremely unique. Nobody in the Big 12 does anything like this, which it's kind of like what Iowa State used to do on defense. And it's like, or Mark Adams used to do on defense as well. Like something like, whoa, what is this sorcery? Have not seen this. We don't practice against this much, but running the triple option and just the speed option and all these things out of a variety of sets with personnel groups and moving your pieces around and all that. It's unique. It sticks out like a sore thumb. That benefits Kansas because people don't see it. And I think that's a good point. The other point that I think he made, you want to know why Kansas has all of a sudden gotten better or gotten good? And Lance Leipold has done a phenomenal job. But what he has been able to take advantage of, and other people have pointed this out as well, but do you remember the name of Charlie Weiss?
I do.
Okay, a terrible, terrible hire by the Kansas Jayhawks. So Charlie Weiss, went in and he just jacked that roster up. I mean, JUCO'd it up, kick guys off, whatever. It was a freaking mess. You end up in a scenario to where they had gotten down to like the 60 to 65 scholarship range. And the way the rules are, you could only catch up incrementally, like you couldn't get it all back. Well, and even David Beatty kind of inherited that problem, and he kind of got it turned a little bit. And I think had he been given time, he would have gotten them back to a bowl game and all that. But what Lance Leipold has come into is with the new rule of the portal, in that when guys leave, you can replace them and maintain that 85 scholarship limit. He's now got a full roster he's the first Kansas coach that's really had that. And I don't know, we're probably going on 8 to 10 years where he's had like a full complement of what a roster is supposed to look like, and it's obviously paid off. But I think that's why the quick turn, and that's why they're 16th in the the college football playoff rankings, and why they're kind of they're starting to roll. And he's a damn good coach. Anyway, just thought I'd point some of those out from the show last night.
Yeah, interesting stuff, and something else that you pointed out to me that I want to get into here with you is a conversation regarding Behren Morton, and this is another point of discrepancy between these two teams. The second part of this, turnover margin. Obviously, a Tech fan knows that it has been a nightmarish kind of conversation when you're talking turnover margin for Tech so far this season. You have not taken it away as much as you hope to, but you have definitely given it away far more often than you expected to. 16-10 going the wrong way for Texas Tech so far this season. Just for posterity's sake, the Jayhawks giving it away 10 times, taking it away 13. So not prolific, but they are positive as far as the turnover margin is concerned. But Chris, what you mentioned to me in a brief conversation off the year was, some consideration of how the guy that is your quarterback now has impacted the turnover margin, which when you reflect on it, it actually has a fairly light connection.
So I was listening to a Big 12 conversation on a radio show, a national radio show yesterday, and one of this game came up. The Texas Tech Kansas game came up, and I think the conversation was, is Texas Tech in a position to be a spoiler and like down the stretch here, because you could spoil Kansas this season or end any hopes that they have of a Big 12 title game appearance. And you certainly could play spoiler with Texas with whatever they hope to do, whether it's, college football playoff or Big 12 title game, whatever. You're in a position to upset the apple cart there with both programs. And it was brought up because, Behren Morton is back, and now are they in a position to operate this way? But then the counterpoint was, but man, they just turn it over so much. Those problems still remain, and so I don't know if Behren Morton is enough. And I got to thinking about it. I'm like, that's not really accurate at all. I think it's worth pointing out. Yes, you've had turnover problems. It's well documented. I think you have 12 picks on the year. I can't remember how many fumbles that you've given away, but I know Taj Brooks has fumbled one time, Miles Price on a punt return, and on and on it went. It's well documented in some of these losses, the BYU, the Kansas State, the Oregon, all those, the lopsided, not enough takeaways, turning it over way too much, bad combination. Behren Morton's not responsible for any of this, folks. The last turnover he had was in Waco, and it was an underthrown deep ball. And I'd like to think that a lot of that had to do with, his arm strength not being back. I mean, that was one of the first games back. I think he's learning to play with that injury and dealing with that and all those things. And he just simply underthrew it and didn't have the juice in that arm after that AC joint sprain and all that stuff. But I mean, Cowan, I mean, it's you know, and then the other interception he's thrown was at the tail end of the Tarleton State game, which was garbage time. But he hasn't coughed it up at all. I just thought it's worth pointing out that, as you go forward here, you can maintain that has been an issue with this team, but it doesn't stick to Behren Morton at all. That would be inaccurate. And I will tell you, Kansas is maybe we'll reverse jinx it here, but Kansas is like, they've had a couple of pick sixes in back-to-back weeks. They jump routes. They're very aggressive. I think you can use this against them. So keep an eye on that. Like, I think double moves may get them, stuff like that. But I mean, they'll be very aggressive and try to, because they give up, I think it's 4 passes of 20 yards or more on average. So they give up some explosives in the pass game, and I think part of that is because they're aggressive. So we'll see what Behren can do there. And like, speaking of explosive, one other point I'll make: Jason Bean runs a 10.3 100 meters. Legit track dude. You want to get an idea how fast that is? You ain't got nobody running 10.3 on your team. Now, I don't know if he's healthy right now and all those, but he's been he's been locked in at a 10.3. I think in high school he was a legit track stud. So you want to know how fast the Kansas quarterback is? 10.3 will do it for you.
Stick him at the line of scrimmage or behind, he'll never get started. We'll wrap it up quicker than 10.3 if you just put that hat right there. Boom, baby. I'm kind of wondering to myself, as you're talking about some of the aggression from some KU DBs. Is this some double move time? And hey, O-line, we need some more time for Behren Morton to take advantage of some of that stuff. I don't know. Maybe you're trying some of that. Again, that equation hasn't been all that friendly to you if you're asking for some extra time for your QBs so far this season. But I think the turnover aspect of this, and Behren Morton hopefully continuing to be our guy, knock on wood, to wrap up the season, is a really interesting one, because you're sitting there talking about those turnovers, 16 of them, 12 picks, 4 fumbles, 12 picks. And we're sitting here talking about a top 25 team on the other sideline. And we can talk all we want about, hey, our defense hadn't taken it away as much as we need. Sure as hell not when you're giving it up 16 times. But they hadn't gotten as many takeaways as we wanted. They've got 3 fewer than Kansas, top 25 team. What allows that to be a hell of a lot more survivable is not giving it away 16 times, which Kansas has not done. So, yeah, if you're sitting here talking about a quarterback who has not been that mistake prone, where could you be as a football team? And I think you, obviously, here's some expert analysis, would be much, much better off. So I do believe that it kind of looms like a narrative, over a team, potentially when you get to this point in the season, some of the things you haven't been all that good at. But as I mentioned, a clean slate or whatever cliche you want to use, I think there's some of that going on with Behren Morton. What kind of team can you be if you do not devastate yourself in the turnover column? I could be 6'5" if I was not born without shins. Shout out to Cotton Hill. I mean, what kind of team could you have been? So maybe we explore that option as we wrap up the season. Chris, as we wrap up the episode, I want to explore some keys to victory with you. First, today's episode brought to you by Jase Medical, and I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications with Jase Medical. Do you know what that means? It means you can say, bring on extended travel. You can say, bring on the next natural disaster, and you can say, bring on supply chain issues, because you're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics from Cialis, Viagra, or Revatio prescriptions, and this is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. So go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. And remember to use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. Heard this from a verified customer recently who said they're thankful for the service with supply chain issues causing them to cut their pills in half to have them. They ordered most of their meds with a year's supply from Jase Medical, and they also picked up the antibiotic kit. Feeling secure now is what they'd tell you if they were in my seat. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and it's recommended for everyone. So if you were someone you love, would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. And remember to use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase at jasemedical.com. Chris, as we wrap up the episode, I want to explore some keys to victory with you, because we get let off the week with this thought. Arguably as challenging of a situation as you have been in all season long. I think maybe the best team that you faced up to this point in time came to your house. So there's not the road aspect to it, but you combine the road aspect to it and you combine top 25 Kansas with still plenty to play for as far as you've mentioned hardware aspirations within the league. I don't know. Do you see it similarly? This arguably is the toughest spot I think that Tech has found themselves in, maybe competitively, as we sit here on paper so far this season.
Yeah, this is going to be, this isn't, and that's what Joey and I were talking about too. He's like, I'm trying to tell these kids that this ain't the old Kansas, man. I mean, these guys, this is a really good, well-rounded team. I think that, Kansas's defense wasn't expected to be very good coming into the year, and that was the big concern about them. But their defense has been much, much better. And the thing about like their takeaways that I think makes it different than you is that against like Oklahoma and Iowa State, which is why we're talking about them being ranked 6th, go look at those final scores. But they've done more with their takeaways because they get them into the end zone, they score off of them. And if you go look at those 2 scores, I mean, it's I don't know if it is the difference, but it factored in heavily, and that's what you've got to avoid. You can't give the Jayhawks anything on special teams or allow their defense to score off of you at all. Because their offense is going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, man. I'm just telling you. And like you may stop it. They're going to get some explosives on you. They're going to hit you with some stuff, but you've got to get your running game going. You've got to keep the turnover train rolling, man. You got to figure out a way to. I do think Jason Bean will throw it to you. I really do. I think that he tried to throw several to Oklahoma. They dropped them. I think that, or there was an interference call, I think, on one, and it was taken away. Because I think what I was telling you in some of our correspondence is that they've only lost 2 games. And those are the 2 teams at the top of the Big 12 standings right now, Texas and Oklahoma State. What Oklahoma State did, they clearly said, we're not going to let you run it. And yet Kansas, was able to run just a bit, but they were like, okay, well, we're going to throw it. And Jason Bean threw for 5 touchdown passes. And you're thinking, wow, but he made the mistake at the end. And I think they kept making him go back to the well over and over and over again. And he finally cracked and made a mistake. And it was an interception that ended that game there in Stillwater. But that's what I think teams have really done is they've really limited that run game, and they've forced Jason Bean to repeat the process of being a drop back guy and all that. And so, that turnover train, maybe Rabbit will catch a few this time. And I mean, that's what Joey said last night. He's like, we gotta pick him off some. We're going to be in a position to do it. Do we hold on to the ball? Do we commit a penalty on the play and then it negates it like it happened versus TCU? But that's just going to be key. And then, and it sounds so cliche-ish, but it's been such a major storyline for the Red Raiders this year. But that margin, man, it's just got to be, you got to be even +1, +2 range, I think, to have a chance in this one. So yeah, we'll see what we get.
Yeah, going back to the defensive side of things, in the previous 4 games prior to Texas Christian, only 1 takeaway for Tech. Had 2 and probably could have, should have had a few more against Texas Christian. They like to say over the years that they come in bunches, so we're hoping they're bunching up a little bit further here.
Gimme.
I was just singing to some Dogies on the Prairie yesterday. Let me sing to these boys real quick. Bunch up little turnovers, bunch up little turnovers. All right, here we go. Before we get out of here, back to the offense, though, because this is an interesting thread that maybe a Tech fan hadn't noticed quite yet this season. Now, you probably have noticed your tight end position has been banged up and then some. Mason Tharp expected to be out again. But if you're hoping to pull it off on the road again, I guess that tight end pond is a good one to be fishing in, Chris, because Baylor Cup has been a common theme in road success.
I just wanted to point this out because, yeah, I mean, you're only 2 road wins with Joey Maguire as head coach. That's been the common theme. And I'm talking true road games. It doesn't count the bowl game. But, yeah, he's got tutties, man, in both of them.
Easy enough.
So that's right. And when you want to win, throw it to the tight end, right?
Right.
He's been dinged up. I think he kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I think that the way Kansas's scheme sets up, I think there's some opportunities for him, especially in the red zone or just in general. I hope that he has a good game, and I think that's a pretty good omen if he can, find pay dirt a little bit and get one in the end zone, because, like I said, man, 2 in Waco and 1 in Ames, man, and those were wins. So we'll see. I'm just looking for something, man. But when it gets down there, maybe just force one to Baylor. Maybe we'll just keep the string going or something.
What do the analytics say about you winning on the road every time you give this guy a score? 100% of the time. I think that's a green light all day, every day. Hey, really quickly before we get out of here, 11 a.m. kickoff, typically an advantage, I think, for a road team. Obviously, a good team is going to overcome that whenever you're kicking it off, which Kansas has been so far this season. But paired with that kickoff time, better team in Kansas, more interest growing, typically a nap-worthy environment you're going to find there at that stadium. What are you actually anticipating as far as what the hostility level is going to be at 11 a.m. on Saturday? You think it'll be a little dreary, or what do you think?
Weather's supposed to be nice, so I don't think the weather keeps it. I think that you were. I'm taking it too literal what you said, but I do possibly think. I will tell you that it was dreary weather, literally, versus Oklahoma, and that was a mid-afternoon kick, I think, or that may have been 11 a.m. or 2. Either way, it wasn't full, which shocked me. Yeah. It's the last time you're going to get Oklahoma. You're really good. You pull off the upset, but it wasn't full at all.
Speaking of ponds, you put your field goal in a pond, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But it wasn't full to start it.
Yeah, need to go get a new one. Yeah, and Oklahoma State did the same thing. What is it with just dunking the goalpost?
Oklahoma State actually pond, man.
I know the Oklahoma State actually pulled theirs out. They got theirs out of the pond. I don't know if they're going to reset it back up and march it back into the stands or what. But yeah, what catalog do you order one of those after? Hey, where's the goalpost catalog? We need a new one shipped here.
You're going to have PETA all up in you. You leave that thing to disintegrate by those ducks in the pond, though. So that's probably a good idea.
That's right.
Get it out.
But I don't. There was a time, and I'm not even joking, when we would show up with these 11 a.m.ers on the road there, and you could count less than 100 people in the stands, like when we would go on the air, and that would always be like an hour before, but there was no interest, and it was just a flat atmosphere, which sometimes that works against the road team. The home team's used to playing in it. The road team, it's like, dude, we're playing in front of these crowds. There's no energy in here. And that's when bad things happen. Yeah. But I do think absolutely the advantage, maybe it's just slight, but I think the advantage does go to the road team in these 11 a.m. games, just because, there's not a lot of juice in these stadiums. It's not natural for people to be as amped up at 11 a.m. as they would be at 3 or 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever after some beverages.
I guess I didn't see the number against Oklahoma or see it physically on the screen, what it looked like in the stands, but that surprises me a little bit and probably gives you some indication of how far they have to go to be a football fan base, I guess, worth their salt, at least what's being put on the field so far this season. So big challenge, plenty enough coming up with just the guys in the hats and the colored shirts, but we'll see what the folks in the stands have for the Red Raiders as well. Chris, enjoy the call, my man. Travel safe. You got a busy weekend again, because obviously hoops is on the horizon as well. Basketball season on and popping. We're talking about that. We're talking about what goes down in Lawrence and all things in between when we convene again, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the time as always.
If I don't see you in Lawrence out there, people, Kansas, I'll see you. And I'm wondering if we get a Pat Mahomes visitation, a sighting. It's Chiefs bye week, so it's nearby. We'll see. Just remember that I said that, and then we'll see you at the United Supermarkets Arena on Sunday, 1 o'clock tip there against San Jose State and Tim Miles. They do a really good job, so it won't be an easy one, and kind of like the same kind of atmosphere problem for your home team there with an early game that maybe the Jayhawks have. I don't know. Just be aware. But I appreciate the time. Keep hope alive, everybody. Cowan, your money as always, man. We'll talk to you next week.
If Lubbock don't get up for San Jose State, I'm out of here, because if you can't get up for San Jose State, what are we doing, folks? Have a great weekend. For Chris, I'm Casey. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.